I will start with session chair, Shri Subrata Gupta, Chief General Manager, NABARD, to join us. A round of applause for Mr. Gupta, please. We are very thankful, sir, to accept our request of being the chair. And then I invite Mr. Abhinanda Ghosh, Deputy General Manager and Chief Information Officer, Agriculture Insurance Corporation of India Limited. Okay, sir is here with us. A round of applause for Mr. Ghosh. I invite Mr. Rahul Modi, Managing Director, Adarsh Cooperative Bank Limited. Mr. Modi, we invite you on stage. Then we have Ma'am Molly Swaroop, Deputy Chief Executive Officer, HCBL Cooperative Bank. And the last but not the least, I invite Mr. Arvind Singh, Executive Director, Minan Microfinance. Sir, I request you to join us. So as we have our panelists with us, I now request Mr. Subrata Gupta to take over the session.
Good evening to all of you. I think we are getting to the evening part of it, and perhaps the last session of the day. It reminds me of my school and college days. The last session used to be the session we used to target for bunking. Thankfully, at least not all of you have bunked. And it used to be really good because some of the professors and teachers used to make the last session very interesting to ensure that we attend the session. So the job of us sitting here in the panel is to make it interesting for you. While I see the panel as we have members from Urban Cooperative Bank, from Microfinance Institution, from Agriculture Insurance Corporation also, I think the flag bearer for rural credit institutions has to be me, because I think most of you will be talking from the urban point of view. Of course, you people do also work in the rural space. I'm not saying that you don't work. Yes, you do work, but the amount of work which can be done, we'll talk about that. So the first thing which I would like to do is, for all those people who want to know about the business opportunities, let me tell you, of all the sessions which are there, which have gone by, I think the biggest business opportunity lies here in this session. So that's one thing by which I can make it more interesting for you. I would not like to talk much. I would like to talk about it later on with respect to the rural space and all that. But before that, I would like to call on the rest of the members one by one to start off and talk about the various work which they are doing in this particular field. What are the things they are doing with respect to financial inclusion? For example, when we talk about microfinance institutions, are they really doing financial inclusion? What kind of financial inclusion are they doing? What are the limitations under which they are? Maybe these are the things which you have to talk about and find out how we can perhaps overcome them. Similarly, for the cooperative banks, what are the support they have? In fact, if you may look into the various announcements which have been made, if you have gone through the policies which have been undertaken, you will find that we have remained completely silent with respect to the cooperative banks. And cooperative banks have been the oldest institutions, if I may say so, which have looked into financial inclusion, because Cooperative Act came up in 1997. And that was brought out by the Britishers only to ensure that credit can be given to the farmers. Well, they had their own motive in terms of why they wanted to do it. They wanted to do it basically because they wanted the farmers to produce what they wanted. That's a different issue altogether. But if you look into financial inclusion, I think that is a starting point of financial inclusion. Various things have happened after that, but cooperatives slowly have taken the backstage. We will be talking about the scope also as to what cooperatives can do. Part of it, of course, must have been spoken. Well, I could not listen to it because I think VSOP was there in one of the panels, and they must have talked about some of the facilities which they are giving in the form of technology for the cooperatives, especially the primary agricultural credit societies. I would like to call upon the rest of the members one by one. Let us start first of all with the area which perhaps is something which is debatable, and an area which perhaps many of the rural people, most of the rural people, at certain points of time feel pinched because of wrong reasons. Let us call upon Mr. Abhinandan Ghosh from Agriculture Insurance Corporation. He will be talking about the insurance aspects in rural finance. Thank you.
So as they get ready for it, good evening to everybody. My name is Abhinandan Ghosh. I am the CIO of Agriculture Insurance Company of India Limited. I'm sure except sir sitting at the back, nobody else knows me. And I'm also almost sure that very few people will know our company. The reason is that we are not in the urban space at all. Sir was saying that most of us are working mostly in the urban area. I am rather proud to tell you that we insure 2.5 crore farm holdings per annum out of 11.9 crore farm holdings, that's 16%. And 2.5 crore farmers, of which 86% are small and marginal farmers. So we are very, very much in the rural space. I'll talk about our technology project. We are a small company, 270 people, from the chairman to the chauffeur. We've got 17 offices of about 10-15 each, but we are covering 2.41 crore. It's a ratio of about 1 employee to about 1 lakh clients. And that merits mention. This is the name of our technology project which has made this impossibility possible. It's a fairy tale. It's a fairy tale from India. Annapurna, as you know, literally means the goddess of bounty. And that is what we wish for all the farmers of our country. Farmers, they feed us like a mother feeds children, and therefore they are the ones whom we are proud to serve. Let's have a look at our operations, scale of operations, very quickly. Two crore 42 lakh farmers is the size of the Australian population. As far as land is concerned, we insure Germany. The risk that we undertake is the GDP of a country called Madagascar. And the premium that we take in is equal to the annual budget of Guyana. So what's been our vision? Are we there in the rural space just for commerce? What has been a long-term goal? And why did we take up this Annapurna project? I won't say much and let the slide do the talking. Huge figures. India is a land of huge figures. I can tell you Annapurna has won awards all across the world. Not so much because we meditate, we do meditate, but not because, I mean, we are so great as, but we always beat everyone else in terms of figures. We have about 30 years of crop data for every taluka in the country and about 70 crops, twice a year, 2 seasons. We have weather data of 100 years simulated over 12 parameters of weather. I mean, figures I could go on and on and on, and nobody would come close in crop insurance space. So these have been our constraints. That's why Annapurna. Are we doing commerce or are we doing service? That's a very intriguing question. We do the business, we improve the top line, the bottom line, our network is strengthened to enable us to do further business. But on the other hand, who are we doing the business for? The poorest and the remotest farmer. So then again, are we doing business? Or are we doing social service? I leave it to your wisdom, I leave it to your collective conscience to decide the answer. Our corporate vision and mission are as follows. And as you can see, it blends into the fabric of our company, AIC, Agriculture Insurance Company. So now, you've seen the scale of our operations. Have a look at the scale of our challenges. What kind of challenges did we face when we embarked on our technology project? First, the business process challenge. Our business is not the same as other general insurance. We are unique. The way we conduct this business, 270 people insuring 2.4 crore farmers, it cannot be done on an individual policy basis, which motor insurances, health insurances, etc. do. When you take insurance coverage, the crop doesn't even exist. It's not like your motor car. It's not like your body for which you're taking medical insurance. The crop is not there. So how do you assess the sum insured? There is no peril which will trigger a loss event. It's not as if there will be a thunderstorm and we rush there to assess the loss. No. We have to work backwards. Lesser than expected yield. What we do is, in every small taluka or gram panchayat, we give a guaranteed yield, which is again scientifically and actuarially calculated. And if the yield this year is less than that of the average of last 5 years, then we take it that there's been a loss. And every farmer in that area growing that crop is compensated. Therefore, coverage is individual, but claims assessment is area-based. The challenge has many faces. The agroeconomic challenge. Farmers are poor. We have 119 agroclimatic zones in the country which give different risk profiles. There is the product pricing challenge. If you make the product more individualistic, you have to service them more, it costs more, price goes up, farmer cannot afford. How do you balance? The business model challenge. As I told you, there is no crop to insure when you do the insurance. How do you arrive at a sum insured? The claims management challenge is very important. All over the country, harvests happen at the same time. And all the assessments of loss have to be done in a span of say 15 days, all across the country, all across the crops. Imagine the kind of number of people you would need, the army that you would need. But we have only 270. We do it through the governmental channels, of course. Administrative challenge, again, 270 people and 2.4 crore farmers. You have to write their policies, you have to underwrite them, you have to service them, you have to pay the claims to their bank accounts. And last but certainly not the least is the technology challenge. The diverse needs, the diverse requirements, all have to be fitted into a single technology solution. $330 million hectares of land space, Germany. Out of 138 million, 118 million are small and marginals. 86% of them. 1,500 US dollars. That's the average income of a farmer family. They are expected to do crop insurance, pay premiums. 27 state governments we have to deal with. The solution. I'll go through it very short. We've got a product stack. We've got a 360-degree application rounding off, covering every administrative business needs. And they are on diverse products. You find Oracle, SaaS, TCS Banks is the core, Microsoft, some are bespoke, developed. Our system architecture is a 3-level pyramid, which is the industry standard. The data tag, look at our databases, huge number. And of course, finally the presentation tag. Security. I am very proud to say that our company has won many security awards simply because our solution has got a 3-level ring, security ring. The host level, which is our machine level. The network lands. And finally the perimeter going into the cloud. And what has all this impacted? What has been the fruits of that? Let's see. I won't give you any figures as such, but you can see the curve to get a visual impression of how we have increased the coverage, number of farmers increased. How many more farmers have we included financially into the crop insurance fold? How much area has been brought under crop insurance? The curves go up, they are in million hectares. How much risks have we taken on ourselves? The curve is steep. We've taken on more and more risks as we have matured as a company. The gross premium has really shot up, and we are certainly making profits, increasing our bottom lines, but as a policy, we don't distribute our profits. It all goes to increase our net worth. How many farmers benefited? If you see a downward slide, it's because the claims for this year have not yet been fully settled. It will ultimately go up. So what have we learned? For such projects, mission mode projects as these, what are our takeaways? How do we get into the next level? We have to do a solution management. If the base is not strong, then you can't do a solution. I mean, then the solution will be, half-baked. It has to fit into the jigsaw puzzle. Technology management, diverse products, all integrated, everything fitting into a snug hole. Tender management, we in India were doing the government, you know how complicated a tender is. And thereafter the vendor management. Change management, getting into the minds of the users who are used to the old things is a very difficult proposition. And also the management of the management, our board and the ministry, to convince them, return on investment, cost benefit analysis, all these have been learnings and takeaways. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Ghosh. I think we had a brief with respect to. I think this is one area where perhaps, though I was feeling slightly restless because of the time constraints which are there and the time limits which have been given, I thought that we should allow this to go on because this is one area where most of the people don't know much about. The fact what AICI is doing, many other people don't know. I would like to thank him for the detailed presentation which he made. I would also like to put forward here. I don't know how many of you saw a business opportunity in this, but there are business opportunities if you are willing to look into it in the right way. In the insurance field, one of the things which is the worst thing as far as insurance is concerned is that insurance always gets attached with a bit of a negativity. Whether it is crop insurance, whether it is life insurance, whether it is accident insurance, everything comes on a negative way. It comes with a negative tone. But here is, this is something where the benefits of insurance, how it can be put forward in a positive manner, can be a game changer with respect to insurance altogether. And in fact, in some of the cases, the advertisements which come up, I think the media world has got a tremendous amount of scope in terms of making insurance popular. I'm not talking about just the financing part of it. There are lots of activities which are there, which goes on in the background. AICI is one of the institutions which is perhaps least known in the insurance world, and many of you perhaps have heard the name on very few occasions. It doesn't come up so easily, they just simply keep on working on the background. Okay, with that we go to the next name in the panel. Can I request Madam Molly Swarup, please, to give your views with respect to what are the possibilities of NBFCs, microfinance and rural cooperative banking?
Good evening to all. And as the topic of this session is financial inclusion, and we are representing the urban cooperative banks, and that too from a state which is very backward in terms of industrial development. So you all can imagine that how tough job it is for us to do a financial inclusion, to do even a banking in that area. But we are also inspired by many things. We are inspired by our father of our country, Mahatma Gandhi ji, who said India lies in villages. And until unless we are strengthening that part, those villages, we cannot do anything. He was also a firm supporter of the cooperative movement. And I am working in a cooperative sector. So we also believe in the father of nation, and no, I think everyone should believe he was the father of our country. We believe he must have felt something, and that is the reason he had said that word, that cooperative can do wonders in this segment. Of course, sir also mentioned that cooperatives in the starting, that cooperatives are not taking it that seriously. Of course, I agree with it, but not in our case. As he said, that what we are doing, we should focus that. We have, through our experiences, gathered that until and unless we are socially including the people, we are not able to do the financial inclusion. Just opening an account does not mean that you are doing a financial inclusion. Before this segment, there was some person speaking from the insurance sector, and he said, banks are opening the accounts, they are thinking that they are doing financial inclusion. Insurance is the necessity. I'll say we have to make those people understand what is banking. And for that, for banking, putting money in the account, they need money. Today, if we have that Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, it says, okay, you can open account, relax, KYC is being there. Of course, there is a difference between the KYC being proposed by the RBI and the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, of course, but people are coming just to open the account, and the 5,000 figure credit which is going to be given after 6 months is their attraction. The idea of this Yojana was that the person who is having one account should not open the other account. Only those people who are not having financial account in the bank should open it. But they are hiding this fact. They are coming They are opening the accounts not in one bank, not in another bank, just to get that money of 5,000, free ATM cards. And you know, will be banks as can open those accounts, but are we going to get really the benefit? Really the money is being going to be deposited? No, it's not possible till we are making them socially included. Like cooperative banks, what we are doing in Uttar Pradesh, cooperatives are always known for community banking. I don't know whether you all people must be aware of the workings of community banking. Like we have also targeted communities in Uttar Pradesh. We have taken a segment of beggars. Many of you must be thinking what she's saying. No, we have targeted the beggars who are sitting at the Hanuman Mandir, at the Shani Mandir and various mandirs. And believe me, they are earning too good. But no one is opening their accounts. We as a banker have opened their accounts, of course, under relaxed KYC norms. And they are, if we approach a service class people, then they will ask, can we open an account with zero balance? And you won't believe these beggars are having so much money, they are opening their accounts with 1,000 rupees. Earlier we had even talked to them, and they used to keep money near a Gomti river. They used to dig the money, they used to give it as a custodian to some persons who later on they don't return back their money. So they were facing a lot of problems, and believe me, they are now very happy coming into our segment, our bank. They understood the importance of nomination, and now if a beggar dies, then his son or his daughter gets some money also. Otherwise, and that is such an unregulated sector, beggar sector, no one used to return their money to their families also. And this has been, we have been nationally recognized for this sector also, for this working in the areas of beggars. Similarly, we have also targeted, can anyone tell me which is the, Lucknow is known for which art? Chicken karigari, yes. And we have taken that segment also. Actually those persons who are doing the chicken karigari is very much exploited. There are too many third people involved in this sector. But what we have done, we have really gone into the areas, the bastis, the colonies where these people are working and given them finances, very small finances that is not costing us a risk. And we have given them finances. We have linked it with daily EMIs. EMIs what? Equated monthly installments. Why? It is to be taken monthly. We can take it daily. We have financed many hawkers, many chartwalas. They are giving us the EMIs on daily basis. Why, if it is EMI, why cannot be EDI? Equated daily installments. That is concept we have brought in. We are also working as through pygmy deposits, pygmy agents. We have many agents who are collecting the deposits from the rulers. Of course, we are urban, so we cannot go more into the rulers, but this is not actually the only area that we are getting the financially excluded people in the rulers only. There are many sectors, many segments in the urban areas which are financially excluded, like washermen, hawkers, waiters, homemaids, these beggars which we have worked, these old ladies which don't even open the accounts. When we work in the root level with these ladies, they are hiding the money from their husbands. Why? Because if they tell them that they are earning this money, then they are so much involved in the social levels. They will be snatching the money from the ladies for drinks and all these social levels are there. But they have started, these ladies have also started opening the accounts. We are helping them out in their art. We are giving them also the technology. We are also giving them the training. Even I appreciate the help we got from the Shri K.K. Gupta ji, the CGM of NABARD, Uttar Pradesh, UP, Lucknow. He has also helped us a lot in this programs. He is helping us through the training part also, and we have integrated. So basically, the integration of the various institutions are also very much involved. What we have started doing is we have created a priority launch in our bank, and what these ladies are making, we are displaying that in that priority launch. And now people are coming to the bank. They are HNIs also, they are normal customers also. If they like, they are getting it at a reduced rate, not like airports where we are getting it at escalated rates. In our bank, the customers who are walking are getting those products at a reasonable rate, much reasonable rate than the market, and they are buying it. And what we do is that money is being directly credited to the accounts of these villagers or these people, chicken karigars who are doing this. We have also worked this for Achar Papad also, for the villagers, but this chicken karigari is coming out to be a really effective model where we are getting the results more. So they get the money, and we have, even when we put some stalls or we sponsor our programs and some kind of events are being organized by bank, then also we project their displays what they have made. So in that way they are being socially elevated. And until and unless we are elevating these people socially, there is not going to be any kind of financial inclusion. There will be only opening of account, waiting for 5,000 to be coming in their account, then waiting for a government scheme to waive those credit NPS, and this is what can happen. But of course, we are looking forward towards the regulatory supports also in this area, like the clarity needs to be given by the RBI in regards to the KYC, where there is a difference now. You must be reading in the website also that there is a difference between the KYC, what is being prescribed in the circular of RBI, and the Pradhan Mantri Dhan Yojana. They have the Yojana of Prime Minister is saying that they can open the account with the telephone bill and all, but the recent circular of the RBI has restricted us from opening account with telephone bills as an address proof and electricity bills. They are concentrating on Aadhaar card. Of course, for bringing the actual vision of Aadhaar card successful, we need to integrate this also along with a counter of Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. If there is a counter for the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana opening account, then there must be one counter parallel to that for the Aadhaar card distribution also. Then this scheme is really going to work out, and the people can get the Aadhaar card also. Banking people, banking professionals can also be trained to give this card. Then the real vision will be implemented. Of course, it's a good vision. We should work towards that, but certain integration issues are to be worked, and this will definitely come out to be a financially good thing, and India can grow and develop. So with that, my session ends. If I am permitted to show a small movie after the session of others are completed, so that we are not scared, we are not lacking in time.
After that, she may like to take a couple of questions also. No problem. Because she has made some very debatable points.
Yeah, of course. I will be discussing that when our moderator permits us. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Just for information, technology service providers. We have a large number of urban cooperative banks, and from business point of view, I was talking about the biggest business area is this particular session. From business point of view, if my knowledge serves me right, the bigger ones, of course, have gone heavily on technology, like Saraswat, and I am not aware of exactly the status of Adarsh and.
We are very technology savvy.
So there are the bigger ones. The bigger ones generally have gone in for quite they've gone into technology quite heavily. But the smaller ones still are outside the technology field. I mean, majority of them have standalone systems, or systems which are not that good, there is a tremendous amount of scope of business, rather I would put it that way. When you think in terms of putting these small urban cooperative banks on technology platform and enable them to get linked with the overall payment system, I think that's a major opportunity which lies there. With this, for a change of flavor, instead of going to the next cooperative bank here, let's move on to the microfinance industry. I would request Mr. Arvind Singh, Executive Director, Nandan Microfinance. A strong request, Mr. Singh, we should keep it to Mr. Singh. Our time limit should be something around 10 minutes. Thank you.
I represent Nidan. It was founded in 1996, and we work with unorganized workers. And as she was saying, that social inclusion is an important goal for us. So, and also it also includes financial services. In fact, I am a sociologist and a lawyer by training. And I started organizing the unorganized workers. And I was appalled by the kind of money lending that went on in 96. And even today, things have not changed much. And that time when we calculated the rate of interest, it was 482% per annum. In a country where banks were nationalized in 1979, with the view of serving this kind of people. In a country where there are many successful examples. You know, when we were young, we used to have a lot of problem with the milk. I remember we were a family with 6 siblings, and we always had problem getting pure milk. And my mother always used to quarrel with that person who used to supply. Ultimately, we decided keeping a cow, and that cow became a big problem for the family itself later. And one man, he showed how milk problem of the country can be solved. And I believe that if cooperative movement could have solved the milk problem of the country, then this financial inclusion also should have been taken very seriously in order to get it solved. Because you can't imagine the kind of hardship which people face. Even today morning in my office, one person came, he said he bought an e-rickshaw. I said, how much money did it cost you? He said some 65,000 something. And where did you get the money? He said, money lender. In Delhi, it is impossible for people who have. I am very happy about this Jan Dhan Yojana. Let's have more Yojanas. I am favorable to that. But the thing is that we have not been able to solve the problem of poor keeping their money safely. Hard-earned money being put under the ground. They dig the money. I met a waste picker in Patna some 15 years back. She started saying that she had saved 500 rupees and she dug mud and put it in the hut. And she started crying that after a few days when she went to look for it, she could not find that 500 rupees. I realized that even the hard-earned money which the poor get, it's not at all, they do not keep it safe. You know, migrant workers, rickshaw pullers, they are here in Delhi for last 15 years, but they don't have bank account. They keep the money with the person from whom they borrow the rickshaw. And it depends on that person how much money that person gives when this rickshaw person is going back home. I mean, that is the scenario of the country even today. So what we do is that we organize people because we believe that organizing is very important. So different segments of informal workers, we run some legal clinics. For example, the way we have organized the waste pickers into a waste management company. We have organized artisans into an autonomous body. We have promoted around 22 such autonomous bodies. Like Solar Initiative, we have organized another body. One of the successful organizing has been of street vendors. We were able to get a central law this year for the street vendors. We are hoping that very soon Indian cities will have zones for vendors where they could sell their products with dignity. This is food festivals we organize. Those of you who live in Delhi, in December we organize in Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium. We get street food vendors from all over the country to participate in that. Regarding financial services, as I was saying that what we realized was that credit is one aspect. Credit is definitely one major aspect for any person. The people in informal sector are also entrepreneurs in their own way. They also think about future. They also think where to sell goods, where to source their products. So they need credit, and they need credit from 5,000 to say even for growth they need 1 lakh, 2 lakh. So credit is one thing, but saving is also one realization. As I was giving you that best speaker example, insurance is one important thing. I mean, we know that outreach of our insurance program, our insurance in India is very limited, but I think the more vulnerable you are, the more insured one needs to be. And remittance is another. So what we began doing is that, since we started, the first thing, the initial thing was definitely that time microfinance was not the word. The word was self-help groups and direct self-help groups. So we began organizing with NABARD support. Also, we have organized lots of self-help groups. And we have not been very dogmatic that we will work in only one aspect. Our main focus has been how do you access financial services to the poor. That has been our main focus, and to that end we have been organizing different kind of programs. One is definitely the no frill account, that was known, now it is known as Jan Dhan Yojana. I would definitely say that the account opening in banks have helped the migrant workers in remittance. That is for sure. That a lot of non-institutional and very risky remittance has definitely come down. At least where the migrant workers are able to access banks, they are able to remit. So that is one of our major activities that we do. And when the microfinance boom was going on, we also started a microfinance company, and like many other microfinance institutions, we also borrowed money from banks, and we were also doing microfinance. We also did microfinance to a great level. And but unfortunately, you might be aware that this Andhra crisis happened, and suddenly the whole industry was in disrepute, and then the banks withdrew. And that was a realization that external finance is very dangerous, particularly for the poor, because we had organized a large number of people, and it became very difficult to meet the needs. And as I was saying that we are not just focused on one aspect, we work on different aspects. So that this is one very take 1 minute on this. It's called community-based saving groups. We form these groups. They do not have bank accounts. They rotate money among themselves, and we have formed more than 1,000 such groups. And after forming the groups, after nurturing them for 1 year, you need not even go to them. We train them to manage their own group savings. So this is one way, and it's a very innovative concept that it's not like SHG self-help groups which swim and sing together. They have individual savings within the group. Concept is based on shares. That's very interesting. This is a self-help group. We have promoted more than 4,500 self-help group across. And the thrift, as I was saying, that after this microfinance crisis, we were left with no other option but to find out methods whereby we can meet the needs of our members. So we realized thrift and credit is a good mechanism. So, and because thrift and credit cooperatives are run and managed by the community, so we began forming thrift and credit cooperatives, and now we have many thrift and credit cooperatives across India. There is one even in Delhi, and they give loan up to 1 lakh rupees. Surprisingly, they are able to meet all the credit needs from the savings of the thrift and credit cooperative. It goes on to prove that poor are also able to save, and if properly disciplined, they can themselves perform, and they themselves can demonstrate that they can meet their own needs. So that's one interesting. If you anytime you want to visit, you are most welcome. It's operational in East Delhi and South Delhi. Then we have also been advocating, because we are just showing one event where actually bank opening was opening bank accounts was very difficult. But we invited the RBI deputy governor at that time, and then in that meeting he declared that thereafter only one photo identity would be needed for opening a bank account, and then it became easy. Now we have the chair as NABARD CGM, but sir, I'll tell you, even today, after years of effort, opening a self-help group bank account is the same difficulty which used to happen 15-20 years back. We fight with the branch manager in a similar manner as we used to quarrel 20 years back. I mean, that is the kind of situation. So we have technology providers, we have banks, so we need to, as I told you at the beginning, I fail to understand that if this is that kind of, the problem is of that enormity, then so many committees set up and so much things happen, but why even after more than so many years of independence and after so many years of nationalization of bank, this kind of problem is not solved. Other initiatives have been that we have been linking people with the insurance companies. Unfortunately, after the Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana, all the insurance companies have been after government, because they get huge money in one go and huge numbers in one go. And Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana, if you take Delhi for example, it became so disreputed that ultimately Delhi government had to close, because there was very less claim settlement, and hospitals complained against the insurance companies, and insurance companies complained against the hospitals, and but what we have been able to do is that we have been able to get the Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana extended for informal workers, and we are trying to organize the informal workers so they are able to access the insurance products. And then also we have been trying to link the informal workers with the pension program, whether it's of UTI or the pension regulatory authority. So that's the kind of work we have been doing, and we feel that it is very, very important that, because without financial services, I don't see that a lot of changes will happen, and we need very efficient and, as I was saying, affordable and at the doorstep service for the informal workers, because there is a lot of entrepreneurship among them, but they remain indebted and they remain without services. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir. I think one of the beautiful things which comes out in the last two presentations is that it reminds me of a book titled Fortune at the Bottom of the Pyramid. Unfortunately, we miss out on the type of opportunities which are there in terms of helping the poor in managing their money. And I think the two presentations which we just now heard, I think both of them focused on that part. And it was really heartening to know how a microfinance institution is working. In a way, if you look at it, it is also a part of financial inclusion, but incidentally, if you go by the norms which have been set by RBI, Reserve Bank of India and Government of India, I think the work which is being done by them is not being treated as a part of financial inclusion, other than those cases where perhaps direct bank account is being opened. Never mind that part. It's also, we must appreciate the complementary effect which the microfinance institutions are having in terms of helping the society by enabling the poor people get access to finance. I think with that, we move over to our next speaker, Mr. Rahul Modi from Adarsh Cooperative Bank.
Good evening, everyone. Again, almost the end of the dusk, and I believe I'm the only one standing between end of the session actually. So the session is role and importance of NABARD, Cooperative Bank and other NBFCs, microfinance into how important they are into financial inclusion. Let me put up what microfinance or cooperative society for that matter, cooperative bank, district banks, what their major role and how, as to what class do they actually cater to. Cooperative sector and microfinance, their basic role is they caters to low banking income, people who have low banking income levels. Microfinance goes to self-help groups where one stands for the other in any sort of joint liability, any sort of joint effort they put it together. More sort of cooperative, right from the very beginning in the independence India, cooperative has always played an important role, be it bringing in the white revolution, changing the entire revolution, how milk was produced by Amul, which is now a very good example in front of us, and also through cooperative movement was act of people coming together for a mutual cause by and for the members, be it any sort of milk or bringing them together in a way of cooperative measure for financial institution or bringing together as a measure of financial inclusion. Cooperative plays a very important role, cooperative microfinance, because they believe they cater to a certain sort of local level. They know the people out there, the staff is local, they work on low costing models, and they are much more as per the requirement and specifications of the people working and matching to the expectations and anticipations from the respective financial institution. As rightly said, cooperatives, microfinance, they are for the massy and not for the classy, because they always cater to people living in rural areas. Adarsh Credit Cooperative Society has, right from the very beginning, since the time of its incorporation in 1999, it has the vision, it has the objective to bring the unbanked people to the ambit of banking services, inculcate saving habits amongst them, raise their standard of living, and make them understand the importance of as to what banking and financial services is actually important in one's life. Today, as a measure of financial inclusion, we started our journey in 1999. We are present in Pan India with more than 800 branches, where people actually come down to our branches, our members transact, they deploy, they place their deposit, they save their income, we give them loans, and we have like more than 1,20,000 advisors in the form of VCs are working Pan India, who goes to each and every nook and corner of the villages, each and corner of the country to provide the banking services to the unbanked. Not only that, we have more than 3,500 employees working together, and today, in our 16 years of progress report, as of now, we have a deposit base of more than 4,400 crores. Adarsh, as what the name institutes, we have been all our branches in terms of today, it is the world of technological intervention. Through technology, one can go up to any level of scale, any level of skill sets, and at n number of speed, be it in microseconds, in milliseconds, anything. And that is where the major focus lies, that with the use of technology, with the intervention of digitization in this today's era, we can definitely build up a much more robust financial inclusion, lead the financial inclusion initiative. And I'm very proud of sharing that Adarsh as of now has taken this initiative very seriously right from the very beginning. All our branches are 100%, more than 800 branches are linked through core banking system. We have our own data center which is ISO certified, and we have been the first society, credit cooperative society, we have been the pioneer in India to develop the own mobile money application for our advisor to do any sort of collection from mobile application. And this is the first phase. In the second phase, we are aspiring, we are aiming that members can transfer without visiting the branches. Members can transfer in between them any number of amount between their accounts. So that is more sort of facilitating the rural people, making them understand as to how financial benefits play a very important role in making their tomorrow, and saving in the times to come. And it's indeed a great honor and a great moment for all of us to come together on a platform with the intervention of government, that we have taken this initiative of financial inclusion very seriously, and we all are working together. And that's the only urge and request, that we need to work together to make everyone come under the ambit of financial services towards a better India. And we need to have a global vision with an Indian soul. Thank you very much.
I think it gives a clear feel how what kind of reach one can have even from its talk. That is one thing which I got. I think there were a good network of branches, all connected electronically. Just to speak out on some of the areas which perhaps has not been touched, and I think as one of the panel members here, it is my job to bring your focus also to that area. I'll just quote some of the figures which are so astounding, and such big figures, that today we talk about number of outlets, rural outlets not being there. We have more than 90,000 primary agricultural credit societies in India. Today we say the branch network is not there. We have computerized something around 7,000 branches in our project, and altogether something around 14,000 branches are there in the cooperative sector. We talk about people not getting, they are not being brought into the credit fold. These societies have a number of 13.94 billion, and if I talk about the number of small farmers, it comes to 416 lakh small farmers. Rural artisans 55 lakhs, and other marginal farmers 571 lakhs. As I think was being talked about by our representative Mr. Ghosh from AICI, that numbers are something where we are really big. These are the type of numbers which you get from the cooperative society. They are small numbers if you talk about the country as a whole, but if you talk about financial inclusion, and if we say that cooperatives need not be taken into account, I think that will be one of the things which will be the biggest mistake. That's the way I see it. Cooperatives are always there, will continue to be there, will play a complementary role as it has been doing with the RRBs and commercial banks. And incidentally, it happened in the service area approach. If all of you know about the days when the service area approach was there, cooperatives did not have any service area. Commercial banks had a service area. Each branch had 4 or 5 villages which they used to cover, or 10 villages they used to cover. Same with the RRBs, but commercial banks never had that. Cooperatives never had that. They were told that, okay, the whole district is your service area, because their area of operation is restricted anyway. Why I am saying all this? I am saying this because it is these small units, just like you have seen how a small poor person can, or a beggar also can be a business opportunity for a bank. I think these small credit societies are a big business opportunity for technology service providers. Companies like Bsoft are working on this area. There are other companies also who are fighting for a pie in this. Only problem which crops up is, and I think that came out in the first part of the presentation, is to how you package the product. If you think in terms of just like Madam was talking about having something where you have daily repayment system, similarly you have to pack your product in a way where it becomes suitable. A classic example which using technology was what we did in case of the DCCBs is bringing 201 DCCBs on cloud model, where they had to pay simply what we talk about software as a service. So they are paying a monthly rental, monthly service charge, monthly expenditure just like you pay for Tata Sky on a per branch basis, and they are getting the service of this thing. So it's basically how you package the product to reach these cooperative banks, and I think that is where the technology providers have a tremendous amount of scope for business. Having said that, I would also like to put forward one fact, and that is when we talk about this is one of the interesting comments which was made in the beginning. That was with respect to our representative from AICI made that whether we look it as commerce or whether we look it as a service. When we talk about financial inclusion, I look at both. I look at a service being provided commercially. That's the way I see it, because there cannot be any other way by which financial inclusion can be a success. Today the problems of financial inclusion comes up basically because we have the banks on one hand, we have the VCs on the other hand, we have the customer on the other hand. The three partners, the three important pillars of financial inclusion, if I put it that way, and the objectives of each of them are different. Unfortunately, that particular person who is supposed to get the support, that is the beneficiary I am talking about, that is the person at the end of the tunnel, that is the customer, he doesn't have too many transactions to do because he has got small amount of money with him. Since he has got small amount of money with him and the number of transactions are not high, we have the VCs who are perhaps not able to generate sufficient amount of income because the banks want to make it a profitable business at every point of time, which is a natural thing. I am not saying that they are wrong. None of them are wrong at any point of time. But unfortunately what is happening is, because of this reason, you have a tremendous amount of turnover of VCs. That means a person comes over, gets a 500 rupee, a 1000 rupee jump, moves over to another job. So that's the way it goes on. It is here that the primary equity credit societies, which are stable units in the rural areas, who are known to the rural people, can play a major role. They have been allowed to become the VCs of commercial bank, but hardly very few of them have become VCs, got attached to commercial bank. Cooperatives now are on CBS. The basic technology platform is already there. There is a good possibility that you will find the cooperative sector also playing a major role with the next level of computerization, that is by bringing the PACs in the financial inclusion process. I think with these words, I would like to stop here and open the session for questions from your side. Thank you very much.
I'd like to. It was an interesting presentation by the young lady. She seems to be more pessimistic, if not negative, against this Jan Dhan Yojana. Let me tell you one thing. In a large country like that, if you are going to expect that 100% of the people are going to behave absolutely correctly and follow, I don't think it is possible. Number one. Number two, do we have an alternative to this? And number three, I personally feel that you must have a system to see that a man who does a wrong thing, I mean by having an account in one bank and opening another bank, if he is caught and naturally in a village, in a panchayat, in a district, these things cannot remain hidden for a long time. And if there is some deterrent punishment to one or two people, then that's one way. Number two, I want to know that is a very interesting thing of collecting the money from the beggars. Yes, there are in Bombay, I am told that many of them who are lakpatis, if not more than they are. But have you found out any type of problem in locating them later, and because they don't have an address? And all those type of, that would be interesting if you can only say. And the other, same thing, third question also, I would put into the other gentleman, that cooperative one. It's a chit fund system again. You find a chit fund in smaller groups, in cities, the ladies get together and collect this thing every month, although many of them are running well, but we do have also like that Sarada chit fund or something like that, who try to defalcate and try to do. Now we have to find out a solution, how to control that. These are the few points. Thank you.
Sir, I'll go in sedative by 4 points you raised for me. One is about the 100% part. Of course, any of these schemes, anything cannot be 100%. And our purpose should be how we should reach to the 100%. Because when we nearest to this, suggestion is which will bring all the 3 points of yours together is that until unless the 3 requirements of implementing this scheme is integrated, we cannot be successful. Like I said, we have to open an account. We have to open an account under the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. Okay. That person should not have an account anywhere else. That is okay. He has to give a KYC proof. That is third point is okay. We are all, everyone, even the regulators sitting at the top are thinking Aadhaar card to be made a supreme thing. And wherein we can have all the accounts, all the persons linked through one Aadhaar card, one number. This will be a solution to your problem which you said, the third one, that how we can avoid these persons opening 1 or 2 accounts. Like if we go to the other agencies of the RBI like CIBIL. If we talk about CIBIL, if a person is having a second loan and he is linked, then that site reflects that this is CIBIL, that he has already taken a loan. Right? If we are having an Aadhaar card successfully implemented in the India, then that day this problem will be ultimately be solved. So that is the reason I talked about this in my session also, that integration of Aadhaar and account opening should be there. If there is a counter for the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, there should be a next person sitting. If okay, you have an Aadhaar card, okay, no, we are enrolling you for that. And even bankers can be trained for this. Like I'll tell you, RBI has allowed banks to go for PAN card part also. They have permitted the banks, but I don't think many of the banks are doing it. But when
the banks always insist on PAN card.
No, I'm not talking about insisting on PAN card. I'm talking about getting the person PAN card made. Banks have been allowed to take the permission from the agencies of PAN card, and they can also, if they are permitted, then they can take the application from the customers and make the PAN cards. But PAN card is not that successful. That is not the vision of the government for the financial inclusion. Of course, PAN card is good, but PAN card is not a vision for financial inclusion. Aadhaar card may be a vision for financial inclusion. Of course, it is because through that we have so much good control. But integration, I'll again say integration is very much required. That is my answer.
And the IT application is that to integrate.
Yes.
It's always possible, it's a question of time, that's all.
There are many tab opening accounts where these banks, what they are doing is, the moment you are putting a PAN card of a person, they are linking it.
Just adding a few things here. What is the total number of card holders we have in the country now? I think
400 million.
right? And 400 million, that's the figure. And what is the type of financial inclusion we are talking about? Because today we are telling that every person who is going to be given card. That means even if there is duplication, it will be only restricted to 400 million, that's all, period. Not more than that. So I don't think that's a big issue. I would rather put it that way, ma'am. Yes, it's an issue, no doubt, but it's not that big an issue where we should be concentrating. I think we should see the larger picture. It's an excellent effort which has been taken by Government of India, and I think all the banks are working towards it, and we are trying to do something good as far as society is concerned. I think there was another question which...
See, we must ask ourselves, why does organization like Shraddha flourish? This is a question which every Indian must ask. Why people end up paying? Because there are no mechanisms, there are no channels. That is the reason. See, if you look in the 90s, we had these JVGs and all. They fleeced money like anything. We used to hear stories of rickshaw puller from Ranchi going to the village, selling the land, putting it in the JVG because in the hope of getting money during his daughter's marriage. And that time we all woke up and JVG's people were put behind bars and all that happened. Then this microfinance crisis happened. When the microfinance crisis happened, suddenly the regulator comes and stops everything, banks shy away, then again there is crisis. Today if you go to most of the this Hindi belt villages, you will see some or the other company operating and taking money from people. Why are banks not looking at these opportunities? It is for the banks to answer, and it is for the regulators to answer. You know, why do our regulators wake up when there is a crisis? Why does the Supreme Court has to intervene for Sahara Group to show where the money is, from where the money come? You know, it has been happening all the years round, and suddenly you put somebody behind bar. What were the regulators doing all the years round? So that's a big question. First, there is opportunity for such scams to happen every day in our society. Secondly, our regulators are not serious in regulating, and till the time that will happen, these things will continue, and we'll get up in the morning with such things.
Microfinance, I am told, has been successful with Dr. Mohammed Yunus in Bangladesh. Are they still working successfully? Microfinance. Yes, because Bangladesh.
I would like to add something to first, before going into the question which you have answered, few things which I would like to add. I would not blame the events like Sharda happening because of only financial exclusion. I, for one, I have at least proofs in my hand. It is not just financial exclusion. I think it's greed also which matters. I'm being very blunt in this issue, and I'm very certain about it, and that's why I'm telling it. How I'm certain, that's a different issue. Because I know people who had bank accounts but had also invested in Sharda. It was not because of the fact that they were completely financially excluded. It was because of the fact they were promised interest rates, and that is basically because, and that again becomes, I'm reminded of one of the statements made by Dr. K.C. Chakravarti at one point of time. He had stated that, please remember that the rich will not be able to sleep peacefully if the economic and social divide is allowed to grow any bigger. I think that social divide leads to such investments, and which people think that in a very short time I'd like to become rich, and that leads to this kind of a problem. I fully agree to the fact that there are instances where people who had no other scope or no other place to invest, they have also invested. But it's a combination of factors which are there, which leads to an event like Sharda. That is one thing which I wanted to point out here, sir. Regarding Mohammed Yunus, I think it has worked fantastically well. It has moved over to the next level, and it is going on. But yes, it has done certain. It has given certain benefits. Studies have given different kinds of results with respect to what we have seen from the work which has been done. But microfinance in Bangladesh has done its job in a big way. So it's not that microfinance is not doing its work, it is doing its work. It is a different channel altogether. In India also it has worked. If you talk about the Self-Help Group Bank Linkage program which we started off, it's a huge program now. We started off with 500 groups in 1992. And even at that particular stage, through the Regional Rural Bank with whom we attached, we had to give a complete guarantee that there will be, if there is any loss, we will be taking care of the loss. I mean, we will be giving the money to you. That is the type of guarantee which we have to give. I mean, the only time when NABARD has perhaps done that kind of a thing, out of its own balance sheet. So, to popularize the product. It has been done, it has worked. We have to move over to the next level. Maybe financial inclusion. This is another effort in which we are trying to put people together. I think the last question we will take it.
Sir, with your permission, can I make just a comment, not a question?
Fine.
Some discussions are going on, and I would like to say that perhaps the government's plan will be, I cannot say on behalf of government, that's why I am saying it this way. Once this whole process by 26 January will be over, they will ask for the same details, okay, from all, that account number and the Aadhaar number from all the banks. And that's how they can weed out all the duplicates. And thereafter they will have a portal where, I mean, because it takes time to create that sort of a portal. For doing it online, so future, whatever will be done, will be, I mean, if it is within this scheme, will not be duplicated. Okay, but we have to wait because overnight it cannot be built, perhaps.
Just, why are you so worried about the duplication part of it as well?
No, I'm not worried, I'm just saying that even that is not going to happen, okay. Nothing, because, sir, duplication is not only for the existing 400 million, but even within the new ones also the duplicates can happen.
Fine, if it happens, how does it make a difference? Why am I worried? The question
I come to that, sir. I come. Whole day we were discussing that financial inclusion, they are not doing the other aspects, etc. What you are doing is really good, all the other companies. But as I believe, their purpose is, I mean, they have just given it to the banks to do this account opening. They are not interested whether really speaking they do the banking or not. They are interested only to do the CBT. The direct benefit transfer, okay, because they need a infrastructure. If the accounts are not there for 7.5 crore households, how would they put that benefit there? So in some way or the other, they have to have those accounts. Now where will they do it? So they have given that assignment to the banks to do it. Now if they do the banking, then it is good. If they create the form of the habit, it is good. If all the other institutions will supplement their efforts, are good. But they are not really bothered. You know, their focus is for the CBT part only, not for whether banking and credit and other things will really happen immediately or not. I mean, this is my comment.
If you are trying to drive at the point that by having two of my accounts linked to Aadhaar number, I will be getting double benefit, that is not possible in the system, sir. The system which is there, that does not allow. If I can have suppose a person goes and has two accounts, there's no problem. Number one. Number two, if I'm talking about benefits of Aadhaar coming over, it will only go to one account, the last account to which the Aadhaar has been.
Absolutely.
That's it. So
what is the problem? That's what I'm saying, that they will be out before they start CBT.
The system
Aadhaar link CBT when they will do, before that they will be out.
Sir,
only the last account
I have
will be
no
out.
single doubt on the vision and mission of the scheme. This is only the solution through which we can achieve this process. I'm only talking about the integration so that everything can be achieved to the maximum can be drawn from this scheme, and certain suggestions from the people who are working on the root level can be a really help for the people who are at the top. Suggestions are there, so that was one of the suggestions which we gave. And one part was still left out, so I'd like to cover that part, is that mobile banking and the technology is also serving the financial inclusion, which we are doing. And that is the easiest way to take the financial inclusion into the ruler, because that will involve lesser cost for the banks. And banks will be really interested if they are being permitted. Even the cooperative banks, small cooperative banks are being permitted. It's already permitted for the cooperative banks having technology to do this, because this will enable them to take banking at a lesser cost to the society. And they are successful in this.
There are certain regulatory issues with respect to mobile banking, and there are certain permissions which have to be taken from RBI. That's out of the purview of this discussion. I think we stop here, but as far as this discussion is concerned, I think it has come to an end. I think I would thank all the panel members here for being very active. And I think this has been one session which I was talking about people bunking the session, but I think the number of people have increased since we started the session. So I'm happy about that. And over and above this, we have with us Mr. Rajagopal Devara, Secretary Corporation, Marketing and Textiles Department, Government of Maharashtra. He is one of the persons who has been very closely associated with the field of cooperation, and he would like to make a presentation now. Mr. Rajagopal. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I actually.
I'm meeting in your last 1 hour. Though I was scheduled to come a little early, I got delayed. I'm extremely sorry for coming late and eating into your extra time. Maharashtra, you all know, is known for cooperatives, one of the pioneering states in the country to start cooperatives, successfully running cooperatives for the last century and a decade. In fact, the cooperative movement in Maharashtra is almost 110 years old. We have excellent, wide network of cooperatives. Today's discussion, that is financial inclusion and role of cooperatives, cooperative sector. I was listening to the panelists and award officers here. In fact, Maharashtra is even though the financial inclusion concept has come very 2002 onwards, it has really picked it up a bit up. But still, since so long it is financially as well as socially, the inclusion program in Maharashtra is run through the cooperative sector in a wide range of aspects. I thought I'll make a small presentation on cooperative sector in Maharashtra with a specific focus on the cooperative banks and cooperative credit societies in Maharashtra and their role in financial inclusion in relation to Jan Dhan Yojana. This I need not run through it. As I said earlier, this is one of the oldest proven channel of inclusion in the country. Maharashtra, it is quite successfully it is working. To limit my statement to Maharashtra, these are highly decentralized, popularly controlled cooperative societies in Maharashtra. Unlike in other states, every year religiously these societies, whether it is a urban bank, whether it is a urban cooperative credit society like the Adarsh Credit Cooperative Society, every society, every credit society has elections regularly done. Financial inclusion, I need not say what it implies, what it decides, what is the wish of Government of Maharashtra, Government of India. The contribution of cooperative sectors to the economy in the country, if you see, milk collection is 56%, which is from the cooperative sector. If I confine myself to just Maharashtra, 80% of the milk collection comes from the cooperative sectors. So is the handloom. Sugar production, 46% of Indian sugar production comes from the cooperative sector. In that, entire sugar production in the country, 40% of the sugar production is coming from Maharashtra, which is purely from the cooperative sector. Just you can imagine the amount of the contribution of cooperative sectors to wealth creation in Maharashtra. Even we have fertilizer distribution, fertilizer production, wheat procurement, fishermen cooperatives, especially in the Konkan belt, the coastal belt of Maharashtra. As I said earlier, it is 110-year-old movement in Maharashtra. The first ever cooperative sector was done in 1904 in the United Maharashtra, which is Gujarat as well as Maharashtra. We have 2.3 lakh cooperative societies operational and working in the state of Maharashtra with a population of 6.37 crore members actively participating in the cooperative, different cooperatives. The turnover in these institutions is almost like 6 lakh crores. Direct and indirect employment is around 2 million. This is basically in the cooperative sector purely. There are some other people who are dependent on the cooperative sector. That's why we say almost half of the Maharashtra population is dependent on the cooperative sector directly, and rest of the half is indirectly connected one way or the other way to the cooperative sector in Maharashtra. These are the pioneers of cooperative movement in Maharashtra who have devoted their entire life for the cooperative movement. The first ever cooperative sugar factory in the country was set up by Tatya Sahib Kore. Later on, Vitulrao B.K. Patil, where you can see even today this is one of the best sugar factories run in Maharashtra, along with other cooperative factories. Even our policy makers, the ex-CMs of Maharashtra, have devoted extremely valuable time for promoting cooperatives in Maharashtra. As a result, even today we see the involvement of population in a large way in cooperatives. They look up to cooperatives for any kind of help, yet whatsoever, from the family to the society to the community. This I need not go through. See, though cooperatives have not grown in the initial stages, later on in the last 3-4 decades, there was extensive growth in cooperative societies registration as well as organization. Till 2001, 1991 onwards, these have started. Actually, 91 onwards, early 80s, there was a separate department created for cooperatives. As a result, we can see escalated growth in cooperative societies and their working in Maharashtra. This is the share of cooperatives in Maharashtra, almost like 36% in comparison to other states. So with this setup, with this vast network of cooperatives, how are cooperatives helping in financial inclusion in Maharashtra? Here I take just 5 minutes of your valuable time. We have 3 categories of cooperatives for financial inclusion. We have agri-credit cooperatives. As NABARD officer has said, Mr. Mitra said, we have PAGs, DCC banks and Apex Bank, which cater to the agriculture credit needs of the rural population. We have urban cooperative banks. We have almost like 520 urban cooperative banks in Maharashtra, which is almost like 40% of the entire cooperative banks in India. Then we have credit cooperatives, which cater to the semi-urban areas and then rural areas. We have almost like 21,000 credit cooperative societies, which cater to small-time business requirements and farmers as well. Agricultural credit, as Muhammad Yunus has said, it has become a basic human right. Even today, 65% of our Indian population, as probably earlier in the morning we have definitely deliberated, hardly 35% of the population is covered with the financial products, financial services through the formal sector, that is banking sector, whether it is cooperative sector or nationalized bank or any other banking sector. Rest of the 35% still depend on various informal sources for meeting out their cooperative credit needs. The cooperative banks in Maharashtra contribute almost like 74% of the total requirements, farmers' requirements especially. This, when I say farmers' requirement, this is about short-term loans which we are giving through the DCC banks, through the PAGs and other cooperative institutions. Whereas the rest of the financial institutions, especially the commercial banks, contribute to rest of the percentage. I need not go to the three-tier structure system in Maharashtra. In fact, the rest of the states also have the same system more or less, except one or two states wherein we have a two-tier structure. However, when I say the involvement of DCC banks as well as MSC Bank, MSC Bank is our Apex Bank in Maharashtra. Their deposit base, as I said, today, even today, people in Maharashtra still believe the cooperative sector can give them better results, can give them better service. As a result, still they keep faith in cooperative sector. Out of this advances, total 38,000 plus 10,000, almost like 49,000 crores is given as advances each year to these. This is the last year's figures. This I need not run through actually. We have urban cooperatives. In fact, this magazine has clearly mentioned Maharashtra has a lion's share in the cooperative urban banking sector. In fact, we have almost like 3% or 3.5% of the entire banking sector is catered by the urban cooperatives. Out of that, Maharashtra has a major chunk. Maharashtra has almost like 75% of urban banks and their services in Maharashtra. For financial inclusion, urban banks, I personally believe, in fact, even the government believes, is one of the strongest mechanisms for excellent service delivery. Urban banks as well as the other cooperative institutions. In fact, when I say other cooperative institutions, banks, even today, in the scheme of things, in the overall scheme of things, the banks are not even included into this sector, the Jan Dhan Yojana. I believe later on definitely they will be included. In fact, I personally believe they are the effective measures, effective mechanisms to reach out to the unreached regions and areas and economically backward communities. As I said earlier, urban banks, we have almost 41% of the banks in Maharashtra. 63% of the deposits raised in the country come from Maharashtra. Advances also almost 66% of the advances come from Maharashtra urban cooperative banks. Some of the banks, Cosmos is there, Avyuday is there, Saraswati is there, various other banks are there. The cooperatives cover almost many of the sectors they cover, especially the sugar, as I said earlier, dairy, textiles, fisheries, and finance as well, financial institutions we have. This I need not cover. When I said the cooperatives, probably the audience may be thinking it is confined only to the financial institution, financial sector. We have various other sectors wherein cooperatives are effectively working and they are contributing to the wealth creation of the state as well as the nation. We have cooperatives in education and training as well. Even medical field also we have cooperative hospitals in Maharashtra. Agriculture cooperatives in industrial cooperatives are on a large scale. We have dairy is one of the major sectors in Maharashtra. As I said earlier, 80% of our milk collection comes from cooperative sector. In the last, when Jan Dhan Yojana was being launched, Honorable Prime Minister has given a statement saying that it is easy for the rich to get a loan at a lower interest rates, but the poor are forced to seek loans from the money lenders at 5 times the rate charged to the rich. It's a fact. Actually, one of the panelists was actually telling how these people, he said around 400 odd percentage was the rate of interest charged in Delhi. In fact, Maharashtra is not a exception to that. Though rates of interest may not be as high as in other states, Maharashtra also has a large presence of money lenders in the state. This statement drives the importance of money lending and its control. Maharashtra has come out with a Money Lending Act to control, supervise and regulate the money lending activity in Maharashtra. In fact, though it is 2014 Act, we had earlier in 1946 Act enacted by the then British regime, which we replaced it with a new Act in 2014, with giving a lot of powers to the departmental officers for controlling and supervising the money lending activity. In fact, here we have prescribed clearly the rates of interest to be charged, which would be prescribed by the state government when they are giving it. In fact, we prescribe the rates of say 9% and 12% for short-term credit and 15 to 18% for long-term credit with securities and without securities. When this act was created, in fact, the background of this act was the suicides happening in Maharashtra, especially one part of Maharashtra region, that is Vidarbha region, large-scale suicides were happening. As a result, Maharashtra government felt we should have an effective control mechanism to see how it can be regulated. We went to, one of the initiatives taken by government was to take this act in a simple language to each and every village. So on 26 January 2014, we took out a small booklet of this act in a simple language, colloquial language. And this simple booklet was read out in 46,000 Gram Sabhas held on 26 January 2014. These are some of the snaps. I wanted to leave, before I conclude, I wanted to leave you all with a small, little thought saying that we have 65% of Indian population even today depending on informal sources of finance. When 35% are taking banking loans are using financial services from formal sector. 65% are definitely, even though they need, they have credit requirements, they depend definitely on other sources which are informal sources. One thought is, while doing Jan Dhan Yojana, which we are trying to see each and every family in India is covered with banking with a savings account and then other financial services and financial products. Can we think of bringing about all these money lenders who are in the system working very effectively, who are close to the community, who are close to the area, into our mainstream, so that we can achieve our objective of Jan Dhan Yojana. Can we not do it? Suppose we do it, what happens? What are the regulatory mechanisms? We can definitely come out with a model. In fact, we have a model in Maharashtra. It can be implemented. There are some regulatory issues. There are some supervisory issues. Definitely, when I look back, when we nationalized the banking system, one of the major objectives was to bring about financial inclusion. Though it was not said in so many words, it was our objective. Today, the time has come. We should have a out-of-box thinking and see whether we can do such kind of system, so that when one of the speakers was telling, by sheer opening of an account, are we bringing these people into the fold, financial fold? Probably they may lapse back into the old system. By bringing the entire money lending agents in India as well as in Maharashtra, we can ensure these people who depend today on money lenders may not go back to the entire the old system again. Probably we need to have a big thinking about that and see whether we can do such kind of thing. I personally believe definitely it is possible. Nothing is impossible in India. We can definitely do it. With these few words, I conclude my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I request now Shri Srupta Gupta to hand over the mementos to Devra Sahab, our special addressee, and all other key panelists. Please bring the speaker mementos. I request Devra sir to please, sir to please receive the memento, speaker memento. A round of applause for us. Thank you, sir. Sir, I would like you to stay here for a group photo. This is the chair. And now I request Dr. Gupta to present a memento to Shri Abhinanda Ghosh, Deputy General Manager and Chief Information Officer, Agriculture Insurance Corporation of India. Mr. Rahul Modi, Managing Director, Adarsh Cooperative Bank Limited. Ma'am Molly Swaroop, Deputy CEO, HCBL Cooperative Bank. Then Mr. Arvind Singh, Executive Director, Nidan Microfinance. I request for a group photo with Mr. Devra and Mr. Gupta and all the key panelists. And I request Devra Saab to present the mementos of Gupta sir also. Not yours. We have one more memento left. Thank you, sir.